Today, we learn how to make this. Before I begin, I have created a new visual effects course. If you definitely want to check it out and you want to learn how to teleport, the link is down below. This is going to teach you exactly how to do everything. Every single detail that you need to know is on my website. You guys already know I teach this kind of stuff. I have a free YouTube tutorial for teleportation, but if you want to learn how to do advanced teleportation that you can use for any of your films, your movies, your short videos, and these videos can go viral. I make videos like this and literally the videos blow up, and I use it on clientele projects as well too. So if you definitely want to tap in, be sure to click the link down below. But other than that, if you want the best results, you definitely need to buy the electric pack from Triune Digital if you want to get the best lightning assets. But I'm going to show you exactly where you can get some free assets. And at the exact same time, I'm going to show you exactly how you can create your own lightning with Adobe After Effects. You can skip to the part where I actually start the tutorial itself so that you can actually learn. But if you want to learn everything else, feel free to watch the whole entire thing. It doesn't really matter. But I do appreciate you so much for coming along. Make sure you subscribe and share this with somebody else. Thank you so much. Okay, guys, I've went ahead and I've opened up Adobe After Effects, and of course I've already brought in my footage. All right, this is basically my video itself, and then of course I have my how do I put in the right words, I'm gonna have my VFX. So the VFX, right, I actually purchased the lightning packs from what's it called again, Triune Digital, and I want to show you guys exactly where you guys can get this stuff on the low. So if you guys come all the way over here to triunedigital.com, you will see the electric pack. I know it's a bit pricey, but again, it's worth it. I'm trying to tell you, $60, you can buy it with glow, without glow, or both for $72. I would always say go with the with glow option, because the with glow, it's already customized. It already has the glow to it. You don't have to do too much. But if you're an advanced visual effects artist, then I would say you can definitely go without glow, because you can customize it to your own liking. But go with the with glow option, and again, buy it. I'm trying to tell you, this is a one-time purchase that is going to be with you for the rest of your life. I mean, the stuff you can make with this is unbelievable. Like, they have different kinds of variations of different lightning assets that you can use for almost anything. And to be honest with you, this stuff is top tier. All right, I can't find any other lightning asset online that is compared to this. This is by far one of the best lightning assets they have ever created, or anybody has ever created online. So I don't see why on earth you should not invest. So I'm gonna say it again. Be sure to go ahead and buy it if you want to get the best results. If you go to YouTube and you search up lightning VFX black screen, you should see some different lightning assets that's for free on here. And again, this stuff is pretty low quality, and I'm telling you, it is so bad quality. I mean, you can find some green screen assets, green screen free lightning VFX assets online, and you can actually go ahead and purchase them, or you can basically download it by copying the link and using that YouTube downloader to download any video from YouTube. You can do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, look at this. There's another one where somebody created this. It's a free pack. I mean, they said it's free, so you can go ahead and download this. They have this lightning beam. They have they have different variations. Again, it's still not the best quality, but again, it can definitely do something for the meantime. All you got to make sure is when you're recording your video, make sure you're standing in a position that this lightning will perfectly match, if that makes sense. You can always come back into Adobe After Effects, and let's say you don't want to necessarily use the free stuff online. Adobe After Effects has its own plugin for lightning. This is my footage, by the way. I already imported my footage, right? But let me show you exactly how to add lightning. So you would come all the way down in this area, right? Right click, go to new, and create a new solid. Just rename this to advanced. Actually, just rename this to lightning. All right, and then come all the way over here to the effects and presets tab, right? And search up, I think it's advanced lightning, ADV. Yeah, if you see advanced lightning, just grab advanced lightning and place it on top of the solid, and you should automatically see the lightning itself showing. But what you can also do is you can actually let me go ahead and let's do this. Matter of fact, I'm gonna go ahead and turn on the mask layer so you can see all these points. So you see these points? You can manually, if I zoom in right into the video, you can manually move these points. So this is the origin. This is exactly where the lightning is coming from, and this is exactly the direction where you want the lightning to basically be shooting from your fist. Again, this is pretty low quality, but there are many ways you can customize this to get the best results as much as possible. Now, of course, it's not going to look exactly like
it's really not going to look exactly like this type of lightning, because this lightning is pretty crisp. It's high quality. It's not going to look the same. But again, you can still manage to make this work. So you come all the way over here into the effects and control panel. You can always adjust the core settings. So for example, if you wanted to increase the core settings, you can increase the core settings a bit to get much more of a larger look. You can always take a picture of a lightning, right? How lightning actually looks, and put it side by side so that you can actually make the comparison. You can always change the glow colors. If you want to change it from this specific blue to something like a little bit brighter, you can always do that. You can also decrease, right, the glow radius a bit. So if the glow radius is a bit too bright, you can always decrease it. Now let's just say that the glow itself is not good enough, and then the core itself, the glow of the lightning is not good enough. You can always come all the way over here into the effects and controls panel and search up glow. Go ahead and grab the original glow that's already there and place it on top of the effects itself to get a nice stylized glow. You can always adjust the radius a bit, and I would just leave it at 11 and just brighten this up a bit so we can have some highlighted areas. And of course, you can come back into the advanced lightning area and maybe decrease the opacity just a tad. Matter of fact, if you was to increase the opacity, let's see, the radius, you can just increase. Matter of fact, is the radius increase? You can always play around with the look to get the best results. And again, feel free to play around with the settings to get the best look. Now, of course, with the lightning type, you can always change it from just direction, because the thing about direction is that the lightning is always pointing at a certain direction. So you can change it from direction to strike. So with strike, at the end of the day, you have two ending points. You have the beginning and you have the end. All right, so that's the thing with strike. You can always change it to breaky. So say if you wanted to have something that's a bit, has a different look, you can always change it to breaky and kind of like move the direction from point A to point B, or wherever you want to move it at. There is a tutorial on YouTube that actually teaches you how to use advanced lightning, where he teaches you how to use Adobe After Effects Lightning to create some of the best results. Like for example, if you was to take a look at this video, he basically teaches you how to create this inside of After Effects, right? It's amazing the things you can do with After Effects, especially if you know exactly how to do these kinds of things. You can do so much as long as you master it. So this tutorial is also there to basically help you out if you want to learn how to do that. All right, so off the bat, right, guys, I decided to record my video like this. What I want to do is I actually want to place some lightning bolts in my hand. If you guys purchase the Triune Digital pack, this is exactly how it looks like. All right, so you're going to have about 3 different folders of different lightning. I basically imported all those folders into Adobe After Effects. So if you guys buy it, import all those folders into Adobe After Effects. Actually, I'm going to search up extra. There's a folder called extra. So the extra folder has about different kinds of lightning assets, right? And we're basically going to be using some of these lightning assets. But before we do that, right, what I want to do is I actually want to track a specific point in the palm of my hand so that when we add the lightning, it follows along with my hand. So we're going to move this time indicator right around here to the part where, just about right here, right, before I basically twist my hand completely. And then I'm just going to basically click on this video, hit Control-Shift-D to split the layer, move this time indicator a few frames backwards, come back and change this color to maybe yellow, and press Enter on the keyboard to rename this to track. All right, I'm going to click on the layer one more time, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come all the way over here to the right corner until I see tracker. If you don't see tracker, go to Window, scroll all the way down, and you should see tracker down here. All right, so once you do that, right, click on the layer itself and go ahead and click on track motion. It's going to open up a different layer. Now, I was already doing this before. That's the reason why it's zoomed in. But go ahead and zoom in into your subject. And what I want you to do is come over here into the center and drag and click and hold somewhere in this space, and go ahead and reposition this to a place where basically the pointer can actually track perfectly well. So for me, I'm going to place it right here around one of these black lines that is in my wrist, in the palm of my hand. And then I'm just going to basically go ahead and press play. And then it should track perfectly. Again, this does not have to be a perfect track because I'm not moving too much. Once the track has been completed, what's going to happen is we're going to come back into this space. We're going to right click this space, go to new, go ahead and click on null object. Then what I want you to do is I want you to move this time indicator a few frames all the way to the very end. Go ahead and click on the null object and hit Control Shift D, and then basically delete this piece. Now, of course, the null should be null 1, so I'm going to change mine to null 1 because you guys are starting off. It should be null 1. Just go ahead and click on Edit Target in this space. Change this from footage and click on null 1 and press OK. And then press Apply and then press OK. And then it should automatically move all that tracking data into this specific area. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to turn off this null layer because we're not going to be using it. But we're basically going to be applying effects to it. And those effects are basically going to track, well, we're going to parent those effects to this so that everything can, seamlessly track very well. So what I'm going to do is inside of my electric glow pack, I'm going to go ahead and grab the extra one. And I'm going to drag the extra one into my layer. Now, what I'm going to do is let me zoom out, and I'm going to go ahead and change the mode, right? If you don't see mode, just click on toggle switches to mode, click on that, and I'm going to change this to screen. And of course, when I change it to screen, automatically should remove the black background from our scene. I'm going to go ahead and click on the extra, change the color to maybe like cyan, so we know that it's basically the lightning. I'm going to press on it one more time. I'm going to press S on the keyboard to bring up scale, and I'm going to basically reduce the scale so that, and if I zoom in, I should be able to move this so that it's right here within the palm of my hand. Again, this is not necessarily an advanced tutorial. This is a basic tutorial, so I'm only showing you guys the basics. All right, so reposition this lightning asset right here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the parent link and drag it right on top of my null. Move this footage all the way down here, so we don't have to worry about it. And I'm going to just basically drag this right on top of my null. Now, what's going to happen is if you parent this right on top of your null, as your hand is moving, the lightning is also moving as well too. Now, feel free to click on the lightning itself, right click it, go to time stretch, and then go ahead and change this to 50. If you want the lightning asset to be sped up a little bit, you can do that, right? That's perfect. Now, of course, this is just one lightning asset. You can always click on the lightning itself and move it a bit to the right to offset it a bit, and then just press S on the keyboard. You can increase the scale. Matter of fact, this is P. Press S on the keyboard. You can increase the scale just a tad, and you can position it right here. Actually, matter of fact, I'm gonna have it start right here. I'm gonna hit Control Shift D. I'm gonna delete this, and I'm just gonna reposition right here. So I'm gonna reposition right here. So it should be something like this. It's perfect. All right, so the lightning sort of like, we want the lightning to fade away a little bit. So just offset it again somewhere around here before he shoots it out of his fist. Just around right here. So it should look something like this. Perfect. Hit Control Shift D and then basically delete this part. Perfect. It should look something like that. Awesome. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna come back into the effects and presets tab. The project panel, and then we're gonna go ahead and look for, grab one of these other lightning assets. All right. So we have different variations of different lightning assets. So this is a different one. But what we're gonna do is, matter of fact, I'm not even gonna grab this. Let me turn this off. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go ahead and search up Flickr 8. All right, Flickr 8 is another one of those assets that's inside of the folder. So grab Flickr 8 and drag Flickr 8 on top of your layer. Now, of course, we're going to repeat the same exact settings. So go ahead and change the color of Flickr 8 to cyan and change the mode from normal to screen. And what I want you to do is I want you to press S on the keyboard and reduce the scale just a bit. Now, of course, you're not seeing the lightning itself, so just move this time indicator a few frames forward, and you're going to start to see the activity of the lightning taking place. Now, of course, for this specific lightning asset, I don't want to actually leave it on screen, so just go ahead and turn it off from screen and change it to add, so that it can add a bit of some nice dramatic brightness to the asset itself. So go ahead and reposition this somewhere around here. All right, somewhere around here. You can press R on the keyboard. You can rotate it a bit. You can always rotate it and just place it somewhere around here. And what we can do is we can go ahead and click on the parent whip tool, pick whip, and then drag it on top of the null itself. so that it follows the null as, you know, things are taking place. So you see what's going on? So we're slowly adding assets as we go. All right, so basically this lighting asset is just flickering off and on. And at the very end where it basically, you know, where this one basically stops, you can go ahead and click on this lightning asset and hit Control-Shift-D and basically delete that last piece. So it should look something like this, right? Awesome, awesome, awesome. So feel free to add more different lightning assets. All right, so we have plenty of different kind of like assets right here from the pack itself. We have the 7. You can grab 7. I'm gonna drag 7 on top of it, and it should look something like this. Let me reposition this all the way to the very beginning. Move this time indicator all the way to the very beginning. Again, repeat the same process. Change the color to cyan and maybe change this to screen. Press S on the keyboard, reduce the scale, and offset this a bit. And reposition it somewhere around here and just make it a bit smaller. And this time around, you can even rotate this a bit so that it's somewhere around here. And what we can even do is you can grab it and then pick whip it to the null. And now if you press play, you have a bit more of like some intense activity. Come all the way over here to the very end, hit Control-Shift-D, and basically delete that last piece. So this is giving it a bit more activity, if that makes sense. Nothing too serious. You know what I'm saying? Hit Control-S to save. Now, if you save your progress, now, of course, you can save this effect as anything, right? So for me, I'm going to save this as e-tutorial because I'm teaching you guys how to do this. So hit Command-S or Control-S to save your progress and save it as something. All right, so basically, now that we have a bit of some of the lightning assets in place, right, what we're going to do is we're going to add a few couple of things to spice it up a bit. If I go back, right, Control-Shift-D to on this specific video that I created, you can clearly see a few couple of things was taking place, right? So first and foremost, you can see some dust and you can see a bit of some sparks kind of like floating, continuous sparks kind of like emanating from the palm of my hand. You can see a bit of some sort of like bright glow, really, you know, kind of like shining from the, you know, the palm of my hands. My eyes are glowing blue, and you can see some distortion. And that's exactly what we're trying to recreate over here. So the difference between this effect is that this is more advanced because I had the lightning sort of like in between my fingers. All right. So since I'm not really teaching you guys all of that, I'm only going to be teaching you guys the basics. You guys will be able to do this another time when I create another tutorial. So let's go back into this specific tutorial, right? What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add a bit of some dramatic brightness or some light flicker, because again, the lightning is flickering, right? But the only thing that's flickering is the lightning. There is no extra glow. There is nothing happening on the outside. So let's go ahead and come all the way over here, right click this space, go to new, and go ahead and add an adjustment layer. Now, once you've basically added the adjustment layer, what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and right click it, rename this adjustment layer to light flicker. All right. Again, it's very repetitive. If you've seen most of my tutorials, I'm going to teach you guys the same exact stuff over and over again. Light flicker, right? So what I want you to do is move this time indicator all the way to the very end where the lightning basically stops. Around right here, hit Control-Shift-D and split the layer itself so that we have this light flicker. What I want you to do is I want you to come all the way over here to the rectangle tool. Click and hold until you see the eclipse tool. Click on the eclipse tool and just make sure this light flicker is selected, and then draw sort of like a oval over the palm of my hand. Click on the selection tool and make sure that the color of the mask is basically a much more of a brighter contrasted color. That way you can see it, and then go ahead and reposition it by clicking the base of the mask itself to center the palm of my hand. Now, what I want you to do next is search up curves. Curves is much more of an easier effect. Search up curves. All right. Drag curves on top of this light flicker, what's it called? Yeah, light flicker animation, whatever. And then what's going to happen is I want you to go ahead and you can increase the brightness just a tad. All right. Come all the way over here and click on RGB and click on blue. Increase the blue since this is more of like a, we want the blue lights to be much more brighter. come all the way over here to the red and maybe decrease the red a bit. Now, again, forgive me, y'all, because the reason why the colors are a bit mismatched is as a result of the way my camera settings had the file shot on, I don't even know what type of settings it is. It just kind of made everything kind of like appear green, and I honestly did not like that. So, matter of fact, let me see if I can change that. And again, this is basically the blue glow, all right? So we're going to go ahead and manually adjust the blue glow one more time on the light flicker itself. And matter of fact, yeah, I think this blue glow is okay. Just go ahead and click on the light flicker and go ahead and press F on the keyboard and feather this out a bit. All right, so feather this out a bit more. So it's just feathered out a bit more. It's not too dramatic. I think this is not bad. We're off to a great start. Let me see if I turn it off, turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off, turn it on. So if I turn it on, we have this extra dramatic blue type of look. But if I turn it off, everything looks too natural. It's too plain, if that makes sense. So let's turn it back on and let's come back into our effects and presets tab and search up color vibrance. So color vibrance, right? I'm going to see if I can click and drag the color vibrance and place it on one of the flicker itself. Now, of course, if I place it on the flicker 8, I don't know if you guys see the flicker 8. Matter of fact, let me move this right here. There we go. There's the flicker 8. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, let me offset this a bit. What I'm going to do is with this flicker 8, I'm going to go ahead and change the color vibrance color back to blue. Let's see if we can give it a nice pop in, sort of like a blue color that's a bit more dramatic. And again, your lightning does not necessarily have to be blue. You can change the color to anything, but just make sure that all the colors match. I think this color works well with me. I'm going to press OK. I'm going to go ahead and click on the color vibrance. Again, I'm going to hit Control C, and then I'm just going to select these two, and then I'm just going to hit Control V to paste it all in there so that the effects are consistent in these other lightning layers. I'm going to turn on the light flicker one more time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to press T on the keyboard to bring up the opacity. Set a stopwatch on the opacity. Move about 1 frame to the right. Crank this down to 0. Move about 1 frame to the right again. Crank this up to like 50. Move about 1 frame to the right again. Crank this down to 0. Move again to the next frame. Actually 2 frames forward. Crank this down to 100. And then move again 1 more frame. Crank this down to 0. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come all the way over here to the very beginning. I'm going to hold Alt or Option on your keyboard if you're using a Mac. Hold it, and then go ahead and click on the stopwatch itself. Now, when you click on the stopwatch, go ahead and type in this expression, LOOP, out. My apologies. And then, matter of fact, let me delete this expression. There we go. And then once you've basically typed that expression in, it should look something like this. You can close it, and now if you press play, you see this blue thing does not stay consistent. It flickers off and on from time to time. Now, what we want to do is we want this light flicker itself to also follow along with our null. So parent it to the null itself. So everything up here should be parented to this specific null. And go ahead and zoom back out. So it should look something like this starting off. All right, y'all, this is exactly how it's looking. It's looking real good. All right, awesome, awesome, awesome. Hit Control S to save. Now, what I want you to do is go ahead and actually don't even zoom back out because we're going to zoom back in it again. So what we're going to do is, even though the lightning itself is pretty good, right? But there's quite a bit of a small problem. Our palm itself is not bright enough, all right? Because again, there is lightning coming from his palm. If you look over here, I added an optical flare to create that illusion. All right, so if you guys pay attention, the optical flare itself kind of like gave it much more of a different kind of brightness to the palm of my hand. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and click on the light flicker itself. I'm going to hit Control D to duplicate it, and then I'm going to rename this duplicated light flicker to flare. And then what's going to happen is I'm going to click on the flare itself. I'm going to click on the curves, and I'm going to delete the curves. And then what's going to happen next is I'm going to come all the way over here to the Effects and Presets tab, and I'm going to search up. So there's an effect called Lens Flare, right? So the Lens Flare, you can click on the Lens Flare. It's absolutely free. It's part of After Effects. If you drag it on top of the flare itself, it should give you some sort of like a nice flare. But again, it's not the best, but you can still use it, all right? So I want you guys to pay attention to what I'm saying. It's not the best, but you can still use it. Okay. So I wish there was a way to change the flare color. So let's do this. Turn off all of the lightning layers, right? So turn off all of the lightning layers. Press M on the keyboard, right? On the mask itself and under flare and delete the mask. Okay. And change this to like, I think, what is it? Change this to 105 mm prime. 105 mm prime. All right. So make sure it's changed to this specific one. You can adjust the brightness and then come all the way over here and press T on the keyboard to bring up the opacity. And what I want you to do is, matter of fact, let me see, is leaving the, let's see, I think maybe leaving this on might not be a bad idea. But then there's only one problem. Actually, unparent this from the null. So go ahead and click on the null and press none. What's going to happen next is we're actually going to go ahead and click on the lens flare, set a stopwatch on a flare center, right? So set a keyframe on a flare center. Move this time indicator a few frames to the right, all the way over here, and then reposition this right around here so that it sort of like follows our hand the whole entire time. Now, let me see something. If we place that below all of the lightning and then you turn on the lightning itself, let's see how it looks. You can't see the lightning too well when it's so bright. That's very interesting. So we're going to change the brightness from 130 to like 75. Okay, that's more better. So it should look something like this, which is not bad, right? This is actually not that bad because we have a nice flare. But let's just say, for example, if you wanted the flare to remain consistent, right? So click on the flare itself, press T on the keyboard, hold Alt or Option on your keyboard, and go ahead and turn off the keyframe, and then go ahead and turn off the keyframe in general. So now it should look something like this. I mean, it's entirely up to you. Whether you like it, you can keep it. For the sake of this tutorial, I will keep it. All right. So we have this sort of like a nice bright glow in our palm. There is a different option. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this off, and I'm going to search up optical flare, right? So there's another option called optical flare. This is by Video Copilot. It is expensive. Drag optical flare into the flare layer itself. Change this from on black to on trans, actually over original, and reposition this somewhere around here. The optical flare is a bit brighter than the other flare itself, and it gives you much more of different room to actually customize and even change the color itself to get the look that you're looking for. So for this specific optical flare, you can even come over here to the options panel, click on the options, and you can go ahead and turn off the you can turn off the glow, actually the glow, one of the glows. You can turn off the glint. You can always turn off and change all of these things. You can even change the spike ball. Matter of fact, yeah. And I'm going to press OK. So it should look something like this. Yeah, see? This is much better than the original one. So this one, you have the opportunity to, manually edit this. You also have the opportunity to manually edit the position of the flare that is coming towards the camera. But again, this is a paid plugin, so you would have to honestly pay for it to get the best results, all right? So again, for the sake of this tutorial, since this is a basic tutorial, we would not be using the optical flare plugin. We will only be sticking to the lens flare. So with the lens flare already added, right, we sort of like have a great head start, all right? Hit Control S to save so far the current progress. Hit Control Y or Command Y to bring up a solid. And for this specific solid, change the color to something like a nice blue, right? So mine is going to be 00C6FF and press OK. And then change this to, rename this to inner brightness. And then press Enter. And then basically, well, turn it off for now, but make sure this layer itself is selected. Select it, and then come all the way over here and grab the pen tool. And then draw a mask right here around the palm of your hand. And then close the mask, turn it back on, and solo it. Now go ahead and click on the selection tool, and then be sure to press F on the keyboard and feather this out a bit to something like this. Perfect. Then what I want you to do is go ahead, I want you to click on the parent link. Make sure you parent it to the null so that it follows your hand as it moves. Now, of course, as my hand is moving around here, it starts to act a little bit funny. It's not staying consistent with the whole look. So you can go ahead and right around here, press M on the keyboard, set a keyframe on the mask path, come all the way over here, and just reposition this mask over here. There you go. That's perfect. So it should look something like this. All right. Now, of course, you can add a few couple of things to spice this up a bit. Let me see if you come to the Effects and Presets tab and search up Glow, and let's see if we add a glow to this inner brightness. We can increase the brightness itself in terms of the glow a little bit. And in effect, you can increase the threshold just around here to give it sort of like an inner pop, and increase the radius amount a bit, or the intensity. Matter of fact, don't increase the intensity. Leave the intensity as it is. This is just one color. And this is just supposed to give it some sort of inner glow. Now let's go ahead and unsolo it, right? And unsolo this bottom part and place this right here below everything else. So automatically, it's starting to give a much more of a brighter vibe, right? So everything is starting to look a bit more brighter. If the flare is a bit too bright, remember, you can always come back to the light flicker option, press T on the keyboard to bring up opacity, select the opacity and hit Control C to copy the opacity. Click on the inner brightness itself and hit Control V to paste, right, on the inner brightness. So now you have the same opacity selected. So now this thing turns off and on. You see what we just did? It's starting to look good. You can also paste the same opacity on the flare by hitting Control V or Command V. There we go. So you see what we just did? Excellent. Now, let's go ahead and add some sparks. So hit Control S to save and come all the way over here to the project panel. If you guys did purchase this, you guys should be able to see some sparks. So if you search up sparks, so they have different kinds of spark layers. Like for example, they have created different spark effects. You can grab 2, 3, and 1. So we're going to go ahead and use 2, 3 and come all the way to the bottom and grab 1 and drag all of them in here. And of course, for the sparks, you can always change the color of all of them. Again, to like, matter of fact, let's make it a different color so we know it's sparks. Let's change it to orange. And let's go ahead and change the mode from normal to add. All right. And then just basically turn all of them off. And what's going to happen is we're going to go ahead and turn on the first layer. We're going to press S on the keyboard, reduce the scale, offset this a bit to somewhere around here so that it's right here. And then we're going to reposition it right here on top of our guy. And we're just basically going to zoom in a bit. Increase the scale a bit and reposition it a bit. Click on the anchor point tool and move this anchor point tool right here because this is where all of it is taking place. And then go ahead and press on the selection tool itself. So now if you press play, you have like sort of like an initial spark. You can offset this a little bit backwards to get that beginning stage. Change the color of the sparks itself to a different color by searching up hue/saturation in the effects tab. Drag it on top of the sparks. And then go ahead and click on colorize and then basically increase the saturation all the way to 100 and then increase the color hue all the way to the color that matches your lightning. So for me, it will be 206. Press play. Perfect. Let's turn on the second one and offset this somewhere around here. And again, reposition it right here. And then press S, reduce the scale, repeat the same process again. And then click on the sparks itself. Click on the effects, hit Control C to copy the effects, and hit Control V to paste the effects inside of this one and inside of that one as well to the third one. So paste it on all 3 of the sparks layer. So you can have this consistent sparks coming out of our wrist and then reposition the last one somewhere around here and then turn it on. Again, y'all, this is a basic tutorial. Offset this somewhere around here. Press S on the keyboard, reduce the scale, offset this somewhere around here, and it should look something like this. So you can add as many different kinds of sparks as much as you want, to consistently get the look that you're looking for, right? If you don't want the last spark, let me delete it because it just doesn't look right. Feel free to do this as many times as you want, all right? And hit Control S to save. Right now, what we're gonna do is we're actually going to go ahead and add some distortion to our layer. Now, of course, if you guys have already purchased the heat distortion, again, the link is in the description below. If you're new to this channel, I have all the links down below. You can download all the stuff that I use. And usually these plugins and these visual effects assets is what I use almost for every single project. So yeah, you might want to go ahead and download the stuff right now. So basically, we're going to add some distortion to our layer. So by doing that, what we're going to do is we're going to click on the light flicker itself. Again, this same exact layer, we're going to hit Control D to duplicate it. We're going to press Enter, and we're going to rename this to Distortion. All right, Distortion. Now, what we're going to do in the same exact layer is grab the hue/saturation. Click on my apologies. Go ahead and click on the curves in the effects controls panel, right? And delete it. And what's going to happen next is we're going to go ahead and press T on the keyboard to reveal the opacity. We're going to change a couple of settings over here. So we're going to come all the way to the part where it's completely 0, right? And just reduce it to like 20. Move this time indicator to the next frame, and everywhere you see 0, just change it to 20. All right, just change it to 20. That's all I'm asking. Just 20. And that's pretty much it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come to the Effects and Presets tab, and we're going to search up Heat Distortion. Now grab the distortion layer and drag it into this specific comp. Once you've done that, right, you should automatically start to see a bit of some, distortion taking place. What we're going to do is we're just basically going to solo out the distortion layer, and we're also going to solo the track layer so we can only see the distortion itself. Hit Control S to save the current progress. So the distortion is okay, but the only problem that I have is the flickering. So let's just press T on the keyboard to reveal the opacity, and just basically press delete to delete all the keyframes from the opacity itself. Hold Alt or Option, and then just click on the stopwatch so that it can completely remove all that expressions from our tab. Okay, that is too much distortion. So let's bring this right back down to 10. Let's go ahead and decrease this down, the heat amount to like 25. Let's go ahead and decrease the wind speed to like 7.5. And let's go ahead and press F on the keyboard on the feathering and reduce the feathering just a tad. And let's move this time indicator to the very beginning and press play again. The wind speed is still a little bit too progressive, so just change this wind speed back to 3. And let's press play and see how it looks. Okay, I think it's starting to look much better, if that makes sense. Hit Control S to save, and just reposition this distortion right on top of the flare itself. So right below all the lightning assets and the sparks, but right on top of the flare. And let's just basically unsolo everything to review all the properties one more time. Now, if we zoom back out and we press play, so you see what's just happened? We've added some distortion, and it's starting to put everything together. It's starting to look good. It's starting to look amazing. And so that's the whole idea of what it is that we're trying to do, is that you want this, right? You want this effect to look as real as possible, but at the same exact time, you're getting the best details out of it as much as possible. So hit Control S to save. And I think, let me go back to this. I think the only thing that I added was some glow on my eyes, and I didn't add too much to this. And I added some smoke. There it is, some smoke. So, by the way, guys, I have different kinds of smoke assets. If you guys honestly go ahead and go to Action VFX and grab the smoke asset, it's called Gun Smoke. I really like the smoke asset because you can really do so much with this specific smoke asset. So it's called Gun Smoke. If you go to actionvfx.com and I search up Gun Smoke, so check this out. So the Gun Smoke, they give you different kinds of variation. You can sign up for just $20 a month and you can get access to these files. Of course, they have free visual effects and stuff, but you can go ahead and check out some of their Gun Smoke assets. And I mean, this stuff is amazing. Like, when I tell you it's amazing, it's really amazing. So you guys can definitely check it out, and you guys can really use some of these assets to do almost anything. What I have done is I have grabbed one of their smoke assets, and for me, I'm probably going to be using the Gunsmoke 2, this specific asset right here. It's basically called the Gunsmoke Front 2, and I downloaded it by joining their membership. So grab the Gunsmoke Front 2 and just drag it into your composition itself. Now, of course, this specific layer itself, matter of fact, let me solo this, and let me solo the track layer itself, right? So this specific Gunsmoke layer itself, it comes in 60 frames per second, which means you can slow this down drastically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and right click on it. I'm going to go to time. I'm going to go to time stretch, and I'm going to change the stretch factor to 250 to slow it down a bit more. And what's going to happen next is I'm actually going to offset this a little bit to the right so that the smoke is already happening, because the video starts off with the lightning already in my palm. And so what we're going to do is we're going to click on the Gunsmoke. We're going to hit Control-Shift-D to split the layer at the very beginning and come all the way to the very end, and hit Control-Shift-D as well too to split the layer as well too. So we're going to click on the Gunsmoke itself, and what's going to happen is we're going to parent this to our null itself, so that as our null is moving, all that is taking place at the same exact time. Now, feel free to go ahead and click on the pan anchor point tool and offset this anchor point tool to the center of our smoke. And again, you guys can find some free dust assets online. Okay, there's a bunch of free assets online. You guys can go ahead and check it out. When I drop a full course on this, I can teach you guys even much more things in greater detail. Again, this is a basic tutorial. This is not advanced. Okay, so what's happening right here is we're going to go ahead and reduce the scale by pressing S on the keyboard to reduce the scale for this specific asset. And I'm going to make sure I position it properly in the center of my palm. So it's going to look something like this. We're going to go back, click on toggle switches to mode, and enable motion blur on the Gunsmoke layer. That way, you know, it's just going to have a little bit of some tint of motion blur as, you know, our thing is moving. So it's going to look something like this. Now, of course, what you can even do is press R on the keyboard and rotate this a bit. All right, and reposition it. There we go. So we have something that looks something like this, if that makes sense. And then go ahead and press Control S to save your current progress. Now, let's go ahead and unsolo everything, right? And automatically, this is how it should be looking. If the smoke asset is a bit too much, you can press T on the keyboard and reduce the opacity to like 30 to make it a bit, you know, not too noticeable. If you press play, you still have the smoke taking place, but it's not as visible as it was, if that makes sense. And what you can even do is you can place the smoke asset below the distortion layer. And what you can even also do is press T on the keyboard and maybe increase the opacity back to 50. This is looking much better. There we go. Hit Control S to save, and let's go ahead and extend the Gunsmoke a bit more. I know I told you guys to basically crop it out, but you can extend it a bit more towards the end if you want. And press play. It's going to look something like this. So actually, you notice the part where our subject is beginning to twist his hand. What we're going to do is we're going to grab the inner brightness, hit Control-Shift-D, and delete this part out. So it should look something like this. All right. So because what we're going to do is we're going to add some lightning shooting from my fingers here. So basically, with all that being done and said, right, I'm actually going to include this sound effects for you guys so you guys don't have to worry about it. I'm going to go ahead and import this sound effect. I'm going to go ahead and import it into my composition. I'm going to import it right here, hit Control V, and I'm going to import this sound effect in here. And I'm going to reposition this sound effect right here. I'll include it inside of the link, inside of the description so you guys can download it. So it's going to look something like this. So you see what we just did right here? Hit Control S to save. And now we're basically going to be focusing on this specific part. The part where I shoot two lightning bolts from my fingers. So what's going to happen is, you see this part right here. I'm going to click on this footage. I'm going to hit Control-Shift-D. I'm going to move this time indicator a few frames forward, just about right here. I'm going to hit Control-Shift-D again, and I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to time stretch, and I'm going to change the stretch factor to 50. And then I'm just going to move this right here. I'm basically speeding up the part where I shoot the lightning from my wrist, or from my fingers, I mean. And I'm going to search up motion blur in the effects and control panel and drag that on top of this specific layer. So it should look something like this. it happens so fast that it's unnoticeable, if that makes sense. That's the whole point of this effect, is that we want him to basically twist his hand and shoot the lightning bolts pretty fast. So basically right around here, right, I'm gonna add 2 lightning bolts coming from my fingers. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come into our project panel. And again, if you guys have purchased the lightning, again, asset, you should be able to see, I believe it's called strike number, let me check again. I think it's strike number 41. There we go. Strike number 41 is my favorite. I'm going to drag strike number 41 and drop that into this specific layer. Of course, you can change the color of this to blue. So we have a different color from cyan and regular blue. And we're going to go ahead and click on toggle switches and mode, click on normal, and change this to maybe like add. So we get a bit of some more like this bright variance, so that areas where it's brighter, you can see the color of the lightning more, and areas where it's darker, it reduces the color. So if I move this over here, you can tell it gets darker. If I move it over here, you can tell it gets brighter. That's the whole idea. So check this out. What we're going to do next is we're going to grab the anchor point tool. Click on the anchor point tool, this specific part, and move this and offset this all the way over here at the tip of our lightning. And we're going to go ahead and click on the selection tool. And what we're going to do is we're going to press R on the keyboard. And we're basically going to rotate this. See, the moment we rotate this, we can rotate the lightning itself around this specific point. That's the reason why I have you guys do that. So just reposition this point right here at the tip of one finger. Press S on the keyboard and you can reduce the scale because we want to see more of the lightning itself. Press R on the keyboard and rotate this so that it's basically, congruent with the angle of our finger, if that makes sense. We're going to go ahead and press P on the keyboard and hit a stopwatch on position. Hold Shift and press R on the same exact strike layer so that the rotation itself can pop up, and set a keyframe on rotation itself. And what we're going to do is we're going to move 1 frame to the right, and we're going to offset this down here. Matter of fact, guys, because it's too bright and you can't see it, change this from add to screen. I do apologize for making you guys have to go through all that. And move this time, move it to the next frame, reposition it right here. Again, it has to follow. It has to be at the tip of our fingers. All right, that's the whole idea of what we're trying to create over here. Rotate it, move to the next frame. Well, since there's nothing there, move to the next frame, bring it over here, rotate it, move to the next frame, move about 2 frames forward, move again. I think that's okay. And then there's this. Move again. Make sure it just sticks on your finger. That's all. The whole idea is every time the lightning shows, it's on your finger. So overall, it should look something like this. Perfect. And what you can even do is hit toggle switches and mode and enable motion blur. Now we have added 1 set of lightning. You can always grab another strike and repeat the same exact process. But since I'm just teaching you guys how to do this tutorial, I'm not going to be doing all that. I'm going to hit Control S to save, or Command S to save the current progress. And then what I'm going to do is, what you can even do is you can go ahead and click on the lightning itself and hit Control D to duplicate it a second time. Now this time around, we're going to press U on the keyboard to bring up the keyframes and just turn everything off and turn everything back on again. Sorry about that. We're going to offset this over here to the second finger. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to reduce the scale even more. We're going to turn off motion blur from that specific layer, this strike layer itself, the second one. We're going to press U again to reveal the other keyframes. And we're just basically going to manually edit this. Move to the next frame, reposition it down here. Move to the next frame, reposition this down here. Move to the next frame, rinse and repeat the same process. And you're basically just repositioning this several times. All right, it's exactly what you're doing. Move to the next frame, same process. Move to the next frame again, right there. 2 frames again, reposition it down here. Move again, right here. Move again, right over here. move again, and I think there's one last one, move it right here, and then that's pretty much it. So it looks something like this. There we go. So it looks like we're shooting lightning bolts. Perfect. Hit Control S to save. All right. This is looking good. Now, what we can do is, if I go back to the video itself, you can clearly see that I added a small tint of bright light. You know what I'm saying? Like a small tint of bright light. Now, look, I highly recommend recording this video in a dark area so that the lighting itself is more visible. If you make the same mistake that I made right over here by recording it right here, you won't see the lightning as much as you would see it if this area was black, if that makes sense. Hit Control S to save. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go ahead and click on the top layer and hit Control Alt or Control Alt Y or Command Alt or Command Option Y if you're using the Mac to create an adjustment layer. I'm going to hit Control Shift D or Command Shift D to split the layer. Come all the way to the very end, click on this, Control Shift D or Command Shift D to split the layer one more time. And what I'm going to rename this to is, I'm going to rename this to Flare. Finger Flare. Just call it Finger Flare. I would use the optical glow for this option, but again, since most of you guys don't have the money to buy it, I'm just gonna go ahead and come back into our flare layer, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and grab the lens flare. I'm gonna hit Control C to copy. I'm gonna come back into this layer, and I'm gonna hit Control V to paste. Now the flare is basically pasted on the finger flare layer. So we copied the flare from this one, and we pasted it on here. Again, if you don't want to go through that process, you can search up flare in the effects and presets tab to basically get the same to get the flare again. So let's go ahead and do some quick animations with the center. So turn off the keyframe off the center and turn it back on, and reposition this right here at the tip of my finger. So right around here. It's perfect. But what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and solo this out. Click on this layer and solo the footage out. You can also come back to the flare and just click on this FX. And just click on it so that you can see the point itself. Set a keyframe on the center. Move about one frame to the right. Reposition it. Move about one frame to the right again. Reposition it. Move about one frame to the right again. Reposition it, and just keep rinse and repeat the same exact process. Right? That's exactly what you're doing. And then come all the way to the very end, and then that should be it. Right? So it should look something like this. It's following your finger wherever your finger goes. That's the idea. Turn it back on. And of course, you can go ahead and change the look itself. If you wanted to make it have sort of like a different look, like this type of look, you could do that. Again, I highly recommend using optical glow, because optical glow, you can change the color of the glow itself to your liking. But for the sake of this would be how it would look. So this is exactly how the lens flare looks. You know what I'm saying? The thing I like about the lens flare automatically is that it creates this extra sort of like light, circle light that kind of like sticks on your camera screen, as if light is basically reflecting off the glass of the lenses. I really like this look. So just unsolo it, right? And reposition this flare below the lightning itself. And it should look something like this. You know what I'm saying? This is pretty good. It's just looking pretty good. Now, you can go ahead and copy and paste the, the lightning itself on it. I mean, the flare itself on this specific layer. So you can even do this. You can go ahead and click on the lens flare itself, hit Control D, duplicate. And this time around, turn off the keyframe from the second one and position the second one right here. So now you have two different lens flare. And what you can even do is you can change the look for this second one and maybe change the brightness to like 30 so that it's not too bright, all right? Or you can even just leave it at 50. I mean, it doesn't really matter. As long as you have the look that you're looking for. And reposition it right here. Set a keyframe on the flare center. Again, I'm so sorry. Solo this 2 layers one more time. And then basically turn it off. And then basically just Make sure that this thing is positioned right here. Move to the next frame and just rinse and repeat the same exact process like I taught you before. All right, we're doing the same thing over and over again. Boom. 2, 3. Move it over here. 1, 2, 3. Move it over here. 1, 2, 3. Move it over here. 1, 2. Actually, go back to the last one. Reposition it right here. Hit Control S to save. And then let's turn it back on. Let's unsolo the layer itself. Now we have 2 light coming from our fingertips. Again, feel free to increase the brightness for the second one. You can change it also back to 75 if you desire. Doesn't really matter. There we go. So now everything is starting to look natural. Hit Control S to save the current progress. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and grab the light flicker itself, and we're going to hit Control Shift D to duplicate that. I mean, not Control Shift D, Control D to duplicate it. And we're going to go ahead and drag this and reposition this on top of the strike itself. This is sort of like the bluish look, and we're basically going to crop it out just around right here so that it matches our lightning. We're going to press M on the keyboard and select the mask itself, and we're basically going to reposition this somewhere around here and increase the mask a bit so that it basically shows exactly where the lightning is taking place. I'm going to press play so you can clearly see that the flicker animation is also taking place, and the light is also flickering right around here. Now for this specific one, you can go ahead and decrease the RGB a bit. Just decrease the RGB so you can see the bluish glow more. All right. If you decrease the RGB, it's going to decrease the brightness a bit so that the blue is going to show more. It's going to look like this. Now, if the blue itself is a bit too much on the areas where it's blue, you can press on this light flicker, press F, and feather this out a bit more so that it's not too noticeable. Press play. Perfect. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and actually apply some distortion. So we're going to go ahead and grab the distortion from the previous layer. Let's grab some distortion. Let me see where the distortion is at. The distortion is right around here. I'm going to go ahead and click on distortion. I'm going to hit Control D to duplicate it. And I'm just basically going to offset the distortion somewhere around here. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to press M on the keyboard, and I'm also going to set a keyframe on the mask path itself, and I'm going to reposition it right here. So now what's going to happen is we're going to move this distortion right around below our lightning layers, and it should be right on top of the flare. And if I press M on the keyboard, if I move this time indicator a few frames forward, we're going to move this distortion right around here. And we're going to come all the way to the very end. And we're going to make sure the distortion still stays right here. And we're basically going to come here and want to hit Control Shift D to delete that ending piece. And what's going to happen is with this specific distortion layer, we're going to come to the Effects and Controls panel, change the direction all the way over here, and maybe increase the distortion amount to like 13, and maybe the wind speed to like 6. So now it should look something like this if you press play. There we go. Perfect. Hit Control S to save. And what we can do is we're going to go ahead and grab one of the sparks itself. Hit Control D to duplicate the third one and reposition this somewhere around here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to have the sparks come out of our fingers as he shoots the lightning bolts. So just move the sparks around here and just press play. All right. There we go. And hit Control S to save. And of course, you can always go ahead and grab the, what's the word? You can go ahead and grab the gun smoke itself one more time. Hit Control D to duplicate this gun smoke and then just reposition it somewhere around here. So now we're going to have this gun smoke right here. We're going to right click on this gun smoke, go to time stretch, change this right back to like 30 so that it's a bit faster. Actually, you know what? Right click it, go to time stretch, change it to 50 instead of 30. And then just offset the smoke somewhere around here to our fingers and press play. so that we get a little bit of some smoke, you know? It's pretty faint. You can't see it. So it's gonna look something like this. Now, if you want the smoke to last longer, right click it, go to time stretch, and just leave it at 100. So it looks like this. There you go. Perfect. See, it's pretty easy. The stuff is not that hard. Now that we're done adding all this, you know, smoke assets, sparks, and all this kind of stuff, we're pretty much done with this specific aspect. Let me go ahead and add the lightning strike sound effect. There we go. There you go. And all the way at the very end, I'm just going to go ahead and press L on the keyboard, set a keyframe on the audio itself, come all the way to the very end, decrease the audio to like -23 or something. And yeah, it's pretty much this specific aspect of this specific video. It's really not that hard to do this effect. I really hope you guys really enjoy this tutorial. Pretty easy to do. So now all you gotta do is just come all the way to the very bottom, select all of these specific keyframes. Select all of these layers. Go ahead and right click it, go to pre-compose, and just change this to I'm gonna change this to tutorial done. All right. I didn't even spell tutorial right, but it's whatever, man. All right, so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and click fit to 100, and what's gonna happen is we're gonna go ahead and add some camera shake, just some simple camera shake to the part where he shoots the lightning from his fingers, just about right here. I'm gonna go ahead and right around here, I'm gonna hit Control-Shift-D, and I'm just basically going to come all the way to the part where the lightning sort of like stops. Hit Control-Shift-D one more time. I'm gonna make sure this layer itself is selected. Go to toggle switches of mode and enable motion blur. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to the effects and presets tab and search up motion tile. Grab motion tile in here and drag it in here. Select mirror edges, change this to like 150. Change the output, what's it called, height width to 150, and the output height to 150 as well too. And then just go ahead and search up wiggle / position, drag the position into this specific layer itself. And what I want you to do is basically increase the wiggle amount more and decrease the, increase the wiggle speed more and decrease the wiggle amount just a tad. Like bring it all the way down to like 15. I think 15 is pretty solid because we don't want it to wiggle too much so that people can't see the effect. So if you press play. All right, let's check it out again. I think that's pretty solid. So if we come to the very beginning, we have this extra. Yeah, it should look something like this. It's a pretty simple effect, nothing too serious, not that hard to create. Yeah, just come all the way over here, press new, and add a new adjustment layer. And for me, I'm just probably gonna add some color grade. Again, this is just a basic tutorial. For more advanced stuff, you guys can go ahead and visit, what's it called? Check out some of my other tutorials, but this is just a basic tutorial just to show you guys how to do this simple effect. Nothing too serious. I'm just gonna add some color grade to this to spice this up just a tad, and we will just see exactly how it looks. If this is not given what it's supposed to give, then yeah, it's pretty much what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna search up noise just to add a bit of some like small video noise to my layer. I'm gonna crank this up to like 6, so we get a little bit of some of that static noise. You see this noise? If I turn it off, you don't see it no more, but if I add it, kind of gives it sort of like a grainy type of look. I like that. I'm gonna increase this a bit more. Yeah, and that's pretty much it, y'all. So thank you so much for watching this tutorial, and I really hope you guys really enjoyed it. Thank you.